Yes. Fellow colleague.
Because your print work is so beautiful and so carefully considered, how do you find printers that will do what you want to do and get it exactly right and not do that awful thing of screwing up your design at the very, very, very last stage?
Well, I must say, so the Mary Hill Double was printed by a firm out of Vancouver. I don't have much luck with U.S. printers, but you know, some of that you know, I went on a press check with them, and I worked pretty closely with the printer on that because interestingly enough, for that one, you know, with the gatefolds, you were bound by the width of the paper stock, and I never really paid much attention to that, but it became like, okay, I got a design that's you know going to open to 40 inches. Is there a press that can handle that? A lot of those other books, the monographs, are printed in Hong Kong, so I send it and hope for the best. But they're very high-end printers there. I mean, Arcade is a different beast, and I probably learned that the hard way with the first one. Like, you know, you look closely at that, things are way out of register. So you learn that over time. Yes, Ben?
I was just curious, like, how you find a balance between doing such high-level design work and then teaching, and how that balance works, and how would you suggest people go about that?
I'd say it's really hard, actually. I don't think it's funny, I was thinking about this the other day. You know, my dad is a professor, and when I was a little kid, I was like, I want to be a professor so I can just have summers off. It kind of patted me on the head, and I was like, that's not really how it goes. And I think all faculty members struggle with that challenge because, you know, we teach sort of 2 days a week, so you're in the headspace of teaching Monday, Wednesday, and then Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, you're in another one, and it's very uneven. I mean, you know, there's times when I'm working on 2-3 projects at a time, so I guess you don't sleep much. I'm not sure there's a good balance of it. I think that's a real challenge. I must say, you know, and I didn't mention this before, I wouldn't have come to the university because they told me when I interviewed, we emphasize professional practice as our way of getting tenure. There's other universities that don't do that. There's other universities that are more theory or writing oriented, and that's not what I'm interested in. I never would have given up practice. And I was just at this education conference in North Carolina, and I was talking to some, you know, colleagues, people who went through school with me, and they're like, wow, you get to do all that? Our school doesn't tell us that. And so, you know, they don't encourage that. And then, you know, I wouldn't have come to the university if I hadn't been able to continue practicing. But I think for me, like, and I try to do this, at least, you know, with students that I have in the past, like, if I have a project going on, I'll bring it into the classroom and show them what I'm going through, whether it's the struggle or the, you know, a particular website or whatever it is, a book, to show them kind of the process. And I think that's beneficial. I hope that's beneficial for you. But, you know, there's a nice correlation there, but at the same time, it does often feel like it's 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah. I'm curious to know how young you were when you kind of knew you wanted to go into design, and kind of what led you on that.
I actually thought I wanted to be an architect. So when I was living in Durham, and I thought, well, I gotta get out of here. I can't be so close to my parents. So I was looking at art schools north. I looked at Virginia Tech for architecture and UVA, and I think I got some 7-page questionnaire back from UVA. Oh, forget it, I'm not gonna do that. But in freshman year, the way your freshman year works at NC State is that you're all doing the same kind of studios. And I was having a lot of trouble basically visualizing space. I was probably like a lot of people, I didn't know what graphic design was when I went to college. I was just lucky enough that, you know, within the College of Design there it was. And so I remember doing a project, it must have been on the Memphis art movement or something. And, well, this is what I really like. So I do feel fortunate that I found something that I was passionate about and that I've kind of continued to do it. I know a lot of people arrive at design from different ways, but I started out wanting to be an architect, but I like flat, I'm 2D. Yes.
You never really mentioned any sort of formal teaching education. How did you learn how to be such a great teacher?
Well, I don't know about the great part, but you know, we talked about that at Cranbrook because somehow there's a lot of people that come out of Cranbrook, but there's actually no mention of education there. So I'm not sure, you know, when we question that, like, what does an MFA qualify? How does that qualify you to teach? I mean, my parents were both educators. I've always kind of, like, I really thrive on the dialogue. You know, there's some days where you just don't really want to get up and go, but when I get into the classroom, I'm just really energized by what you guys are doing. So, you know, I think that just happens over time. I think it's just really having a conversation with people. But cram work, I mean, I would say we're pretty critical in terms of the critiques there. So there's not a lot of like fluff, I like it, I don't. You know, anybody who's been there knows like you can get torn to shreds basically, and it's even more painful there because you kind of put up the work and here's what I'm doing, and if people don't like it. So you learn to be critical, but you also learn to be a little bit separate from your work. Like it's hard to not take that stuff personally. I think over time, everybody teaches in different ways. Yes, ma'am.
From your experience balancing working in the early days of interaction design and being a very tight typography-driven, detail-oriented print designer, how do you currently see the transition? Do you think that on the web we'll start seeing these more finessed designs, or do you think that there's a balance to strike between the two?
Well, I think the web is way savvier than it used to be. I mean, I must say I'm feeling like I'm pretty good with my design process. That's what NC State really helped me to work. So I feel like I can work in different mediums, but you know, I'm not up to date on the latest technology, but you can clearly see that people are doing things on the web that are much, much savvier than they ever were before. You know, people have asked, like, is print medium dying and where's the book gonna go? And there's probably some people that think the book won't be around in 500 years, but neither will I, and that'll be okay. Yeah, I think the book is still around. I mean, the book's been here a long time. So, but that's the kind of books that I do, you know, the more artifact. I don't disagree that the girl with the dragon tattoo will probably end up on everyone's iPad and maybe not be, you know, the physical thing, but until it can simulate that mass and form and shape and weight of the piece, I don't think it's going anywhere. But you can ask Axel too, he's the interaction. We probably disagree on this, and I'm sure he thinks the web is dead. Yes.
This is actually kind of an extension to Minnie's question, but how do you see typography on the web going? Because I think that's been a real big issue for a lot of people. Like, how are we gonna get past that?
Yeah, I mean, I have to think it's getting better and better, and this is not an area that I'm hugely, you know, I know an awful lot about. I know that, you know, like for instance, developers that I work with now can make my Photoshop files look pretty close. And I think the thing, I mean, you could probably ask any of the juniors and seniors are savvier with that. I think it can only get better as technology gets better. But, you know, what I love about print probably is that it's fixed. You know, I set that rag and it's not going anywhere. But yet on the web, you can, you know, scale up your type and destroy my hard work. So, not, you know, you have to be a more flexible thinker and designer that way. It's hard to, I must say it's hard for me to stay in both mediums. I don't think that I'm that current on interaction anymore, but you could spend all day kind of trying to learn the latest and greatest tools and be outdated within a few months. So I'd like to think I can still function in that space for some of it. I don't do any of the coding though for the stuff that I do. Anything else?
What's your favorite class to teach?
My favorite class? Oh, I like them all. You know, I really, I like the publication design. I like them all, but for different reasons. I mean, that's one of actually the interesting things about having to teach so many varied classes is that it forces me to get out of the comfort zone that I have. So I like teaching the web class, but I'm sort of getting further and further behind in sort of the tools that are available. I like the publication design class just because I think that's what I'm good at, you know, so I feel like that's a natural translation to the work that I do. But I like the diversity. Karen gives me classes that I like. She doesn't stick me in symbol design or something that I'm not that good at. She's pretty good at finding what we're good at.
I get the crummy stuff.
I taught the interaction design class once. That was where we did, I think some images came up from a periodic table, and I actually had a lot of fun in there. I was scrambling to kind of learn it at the same time, and that's where I was saying, like, I think I'm a better designer because I'm teaching, because it forces me, some things that I think are just intuitive, I can actually go back and go like, oh yeah, there's a reason for that. So I liked doing that, teaching it. It's fun to teach something you haven't taught in a while. It's pretty easy to kind of fall into the same rhythm in a class, so Karen keeps us on our toes.
Well, I think that makes 10 minutes, so I think we're ready for some more.
Time for a break. Thank you.